Hello, my name's Maureen. I'm going to be going over the liquid-liquid extraction lab. For the purpose of these videos, remember we're going to have the fume hood open almost all the way, but when you're doing this experiment, it's extremely important that you have it as low as you possibly can. In this experiment, you're going to have a mixture of 3 compounds. In week 1, you're going to extract them individually, and then in week 2, you're going to purify them. To start off with, you're going to weigh out approximately 3 grams of your mixture containing benzoic acid, 2-naphthol, and hydroquinone dimethyl ether. It's not important to get exactly 3 grams, just make sure that you record whatever weight you do receive. The mixture is a 1:1:1 ratio of the 3 compounds, so if you have weighed out 3 grams, you'll have approximately 1 gram of benzoic acid, etc. Once you've weighed it out, you're then going to dissolve it in 30 ml of ether. Once dissolved, you're then going to put it into your separatory funnel here. To set up your separatory funnel, you're going to place it inside a ring clamp. You're going to clamp that into your fume hood. So it's shown set up here. You want to make sure that the ring clamp is low enough that the stem of this funnel is just below the rim of your beaker. You also want to make sure that the stopcock is in the closed position. So to do that, you make sure it's perpendicular to the stem. You also want to make sure that you have an appropriate fitting stopper for your funnel. If it's a glass stopper, make sure that you have your TA grease it before you start, otherwise it'll stick. Now we're ready to put our solution into the separatory funnel. It's always a good idea to make sure that you have a beaker underneath the separatory funnel in the off chance that you have forgotten to keep the stopcock closed. So the first step, we're going to extract the benzoic acid using sodium bicarbonate. So we're going to add 30 ml of a 5% solution of sodium bicarbonate to our separatory funnel. So when you're ready to extract, you're going to carefully remove the separatory funnel from the ring clamp. You want to make sure that you're using 2 hands. When you're holding the separatory funnel, make sure that the stem is between your index and middle finger and that you're grasping onto the stopcock, and that your other hand is over the stopper and holding onto the neck of the separatory funnel. Then we're going to invert the funnel slowly. When you invert it, you want to make sure that the stem is pointed up and in towards the fume hood away from you. The first thing you're going to do is vent it to release any excess pressure. The reaction of sodium bicarbonate with the benzoic acid produces carbon dioxide gas, as well as the heat from your hands will increase the vapor pressure of ether. So it's extremely important to vent it as much as possible. So to do this, we're going to slowly turn the stopcock to open, releasing any pressure. Then close the stopcock, and again holding on to both the top and the bottom, we're going to shake it vigorously for a few seconds to extract the benzoic acid. After shaking, make sure again that you vent. You'll repeat this a few times to make sure that you extract all of your benzoic acid, each time making sure that you vent to release that extra pressure. Now we're going to place it back upright and carefully into the ring clamp. You're going to remove the lid to prevent it from sticking or building up any pressure. And you're going to wait for the 2 phases to separate. Once you see the 2 clear phases, we're now going to drain off this bottom aqueous layer and collect it in this beaker. So when we're doing this, we're going to open the stopcock You want to make sure to do this only a little bit so that you can control the flow of the liquid. So we're just going to open it a little bit so that it slowly flows through the separatory funnel. Make sure when it gets to the end that you close it before the ether phase, the yellow phase, goes through the separatory funnel. You're going to repeat this with an additional 20 mils of sodium bicarbonate. Then you're going to combine those two washes. And now we're going to acidify it with some dilute hydrochloric acid. So we're going to use our Pasteur pipette to add a little bit of acid. This will cause some foaming, so the benzoic acid will be precipitating from solution. We're then going to test the pH of the solution with our pH paper. Your TA will give you a small strip. You're going to rip it up into tiny pieces. And using a stir rod, you're going to dip that into your solution and dip that onto the pH paper. When it turns pink or red, it indicates an acid. So to ensure all of our benzoic acid has precipitated, we're just going to add a little bit of excess acid. This final product will then be filtered by suction and stored for the week. In the following week, you'll be then following the recrystallization principles that you learned in video 1 to obtain your pure benzoic acid. Now we'll continue to extract from this mixture. Now we're going to try to obtain our 2-naphthol. So you're going to do the same procedure that I just showed you, except for this time with sodium hydroxide. At the end of that, you'll again filter by suction and store for the week. In week 2, you're going to have your dried, crude 2-naphthol that we're then going to dissolve with a minimum of ethanol. So again, using a Pasteur pipette, we can add a few mils of ethanol to dissolve our 2-naphthol. You can start off with about 5 mils. And you can heat this on your hot plate at a low temperature. So when you're using your hot plate, you want to make sure that you're plugging it into this normal outlet here and not this black outlet. This black outlet is for heating mantles that you'll be using in a future lab. So we'll plug this in. And if you remember from week 1, when we were trying to heat up the water, we set the dial to about 3.5. Ethanol boils at a much lower temperature, so we're going to set it around 2 to start off with. Just again, make sure that you don't allow the ethanol to completely boil. So you can swirl your beaker to help the 2-naphthol dissolve. It's important that you use a minimum amount of ethanol. Once it's completely dissolved, you can then remove it from the hot plate, and we're going to employ solvent pairs to recrystallize the 2-naphthol from solution. For this, we're going to use a little bit of cold water. So you should have some water pre-cooled on ice. We're going to add 2 to 3 pipettes full. As you add the water, you should start to see some cloudiness. If after 3 pipettes you don't see that cloudiness appear, that means you have too much ethanol. So you should put it back on your hot plate and heat for a little bit to evaporate off some of the ethanol. To make the cloudiness disappear, you can then add 1 pipette full of the ethanol. And now this is ready to be put on an ice bath to recrystallize the 2-naphthol. So again, when you're making your ice bath, make sure that you have a couple handfuls of ice and some water. Put this on ice. You can leave it there for a few minutes to allow crystallization to occur. After the recrystallization is complete, you're then going to filter this and you'll have obtained your pure 2-naphthol. So, moving on to the third compound, we now have our last part of the mixture, the hydroquinone dimethyl ether, in our ether phase. You're going to wash this with sodium hydroxide and sodium chloride. Once that's finished, we're then going to drain this in a funnel containing sodium sulfate. So you'll set up your funnel with the filter paper, and your TA will give you about 2 grams of anhydrous sodium sulfate in your funnel. Then you're going to place this directly under your separatory funnel. You may have to adjust the height. And slowly you're going to drain this mixture through your anhydrous sodium sulfate into a clean, dry beaker. So again, when you're draining anything through the separatory funnel, make sure you remove the lid. The anhydrous sodium sulfate will remove any excess water left in the ether phase. Since at this point there may be very little of that third compound left, we want to make sure that we obtain as much as possible. So we're going to rinse the filter paper and the anhydrous sodium sulfate with a little bit of excess ether. When this is finished, you're going to put this on the steam baths and allow the excess ether to evaporate, and this product will be your final compound, the hydroquinone dimethyl ether.